The day before Christmas Eve 1989, Terry Gooderham and his partner Maxine Arnold were enjoying a quiet evening in their Walthamstow flat when they were kidnapped and forced to drive to Epping Forest. The next day, Arnold's mother arrived at the flat to find their half-eaten meal of sausages and mashed potatoes still on the table, with the gas fire and the Christmas tree lights left on, a haunting snapshot of their interrupted evening. At 3:50 a.m, a police patrol car discovered their bodies lying in undergrowth in Epping Forest. Both had been shot, execution style, in the back of the head, with a post-mortem suggesting Gooderham was killed first. His Mercedes 190E stood nearby with the engine still running. The murder remains unsolved, but reports suggest Gooderham, a bar stocktaker, was silenced to prevent him from exposing a lorry hijacking scam linked to a pub protection racket involving an associate of the Cray twins. 3 years later, journalist Peter Wilson received a tip from a police source implicating notorious gangster David Hunt in the killings. Born in 1961 in Canning Town, David Hunt was the youngest of 13 children. He claimed his upbringing by Christian parents instilled in him a strong work ethic. However, whether his wealth came from hard work or something more sinister remains a different story. After leaving school at 16, Hunt became an amateur boxer, earning a reputation as a ferocious fighter. While succeeding in the boxing world, he provided security for pubs and clubs, worked part-time as a scaffolder, and dealt scrap metal. However, he'd soon climbed the underworld ranks. In 1988, police launched Operation Tiger, an investigation targeting leading criminals in the Plaistow area. The investigation revealed Hunt at the centre of a vast criminal web, providing protection to pubs and clubs, and allegedly engaging in prostitution in Soho. While several arrests were made, Hunt remained untouched. Nevertheless, Hunt was linked to the unsolved murders of Maxine Arnold and Terry Gooderham, prompting journalist Peter Wilson to investigate his potential involvement. Wilson went to Hunt's home and, upon finding him out, explained to Hunt's wife the nature of his inquiry. Hunt, however, was far from pleased. When Wilson returned to the house later, Hunt confronted him and headbutted him. Though Hunt was arrested for the assault, Wilson ultimately withdrew his complaint. In 1994, Hunt was arrested again and charged with causing grievous bodily harm to a man named Stuart Everett at a Racing Pigeon Federation event. He was acquitted of the offence in November 1995. By then, Hunt had built a scrap metal business and created offshore companies to avoid taxes. Investigators found he hadn't paid taxes from 1982 to 1996, despite posing as an employer. Hunt admitted to falsifying employment details for loans and mortgages. Although he insisted he was a legitimate businessman, he ultimately paid over £1 million in taxes. Hunt's name surfaced again in 2006, when police searched his Essex golf club and discovered stolen cases of Bollinger champagne traced back to a recent lorry theft. Meanwhile, Hunt maintained his public image as a successful business magnate. However, a 2002 police investigation codenamed Operation Tiberius, which examined crime groups in North and East London, discovered the existence of the Hunt Syndicate. Police found that the group was involved in various criminal activities and had consistently evaded prosecution by using corrupt police contacts and intimidating witnesses. Even police officers were not safe from their tactics. The crime gang were uncovered by the crime squad in Newham, East London, when a scrapyard in Canning Town and a nearby facility were searched for stolen metal. The search revealed 42 containers filled with goods from 18 lorry thefts and a commercial burglary. Despite the compelling evidence, the case collapsed like many others before it. Hunt continues to deny these allegations, claiming he's never corrupted police officers or intimidated witnesses. Reports suggest that Hunt began his criminal career with lorry hijackings in the mid-1980s as a member of a gang known as the Snipers, which operated in Essex and East London. The gang was notorious for violent crime and often carried out work for more established criminals. By 1985, Hunt had climbed the ranks, transitioning from executing crimes to orchestrating gang operations. Over time, he moved into more serious crimes, including drug trafficking, arms smuggling, money laundering, and even murder. He partnered with notorious gangster Terry Adams, profiting significantly from London's booming cocaine trade. Journalist Michael Gillard investigated Hunt extensively, revealing how Hunt profited from the compulsory purchase of the land for the Olympic Park, funded by a £20 million government grant. He had tracked Hunt's activities since 1999, but believed the Olympic developments warranted further investigation due to criminal families benefiting from taxpayer money. On May 23, 2010, Gillard's article, Underworld Kings Cash In on Taxpayer Land Fund, exposed Hunt's operations, though the article wasn't entirely focused on him. The article's main picture featured Terry Adams, with a caption stating that Adams' family, along with David Hunt, was allegedly involved in land deals near the 2012 Olympic site. The article revealed that some of Britain's most notorious crime syndicates were seeking a share of a £20 million government fund intended for land regeneration. One criminal family had already received nearly £2 million, while other beneficiaries were linked to murder, drug trafficking, and fraud. The report also mentioned that Hunt's involvement had sparked a violent turf war and triggered a large-scale police corruption inquiry. Hunt was infuriated by the article and filed a libel case against the publication. This wasn't his first time dealing with negative press, but the result of this case turned out to be far more damaging than bad publicity. At the time, the Olympic site was being regenerated, and many criminal syndicates were exploiting the opportunity while benefiting from public funds. Journalist Michael Gillard later shared that when he began investigating Hunt, the gangster appeared to be transitioning into a legitimate businessman. Hunt had made significant investments, including a scrap metal yard on the Thames in Dagenham, a 20-acre mansion, and stakes in entertainment venues like the Epping Forest Country Club. On paper, Hunt was a mere freelance scaffolder, but his mortgage applications often misrepresented his income. Despite his apparent legitimacy, Hunt remained a tax ghost. Hunt's rise was remarkable, from a football hooligan to a criminal godfather in a short span. His ascent from running with the West Ham lads to mingling with wealthy business owners was driven by extreme violence. A night out for Hunt often involved a fight. On one occasion, he challenged and assaulted Gary Stretch, the former British light heavyweight boxing champion, leaving the champ bruised. His fearsome reputation made witnesses think twice before informing on him, Hunt's version of insurance. Known in gangland circles as Longfella, due to his towering 6'5" height, Hunt also had connections with notorious criminals, including Reggie Kray, whom he visited in prison in 2000 shortly before Kray's death. Hunt later claimed these visits were purely social, denying any criminal discussions. Hunt's violent streak extended beyond bar brawls. In 1997, he slashed a man's face in a fit of rage, leaving his victim, Paul Kavanagh, with a 15cm laceration from ear to chin that required life-saving treatment. Kavanagh was subsequently threatened to prevent him from testifying. This brutal attack came to light during Operation Blackjack, when the Metropolitan Police installed bugging devices in a car showroom and inadvertently recorded the incident. Kavanagh had apparently angered one of Hunt's associates, and the response was swift and severe, a hallmark of Hunt's violent and fearsome legacy. Hunt was arrested and charged with the attack on Kavanagh, but the case never progressed. Kavanagh withdrew his statement after being intimidated into silence, forcing the prosecution to drop the charges. Another shocking incident came to light in 2006, when Hunt and his associates attacked property developer Billy Allen in a London courthouse. Allen was feuding with Charles Sheep Matthews over land, and Matthews enlisted Hunt by labelling Allen an informant. Hunt aimed to sell the land to the Adams family for profit. The courthouse attack was brutal. Hunt arrived with a group of heavies and assaulted Allen in broad daylight. The police arrived to find the walls and floor covered in blood, yet no criminal proceedings were initiated against Hunt. The incident once again demonstrated Hunt's influence and his ability to deploy violence publicly without consequences, a privilege more fitting to the head of a criminal enterprise than a legitimate businessman. When Gillard's 2010 articles about Hunt had appeared in the Sunday Times, accusing Hunt of running a vast criminal network, Hunt decided to sue him. However, the judge in the libel case later acknowledged that Hunt's company, GRL, was indeed a front for money laundering. The company invested Hunt's criminal proceeds into property, including a Soho building that operated as a clip joint, sex shop, and prostitution base from 1995 to 2001. Hunt claimed he was unaware of the prostitution activities taking place in the Soho property he owned, but the judge wasn't convinced. Hunt's pattern of violence, intimidation, and financial manipulation painted a clear picture. Behind the facade of a successful businessman was a criminal mastermind who ruled with fear and violence. He didn't abandon his tactics of fear and intimidation. Even during his libel trial, he used every trick in the book to disrupt the proceedings. The Sunday Times hired 5 professional security guards to protect its witnesses. On the second day of the trial, the guards walked off the job after being approached in a pub. One security firm outright refused to take the assignment, clearly intimidated by Hunt's reputation. The trial provided a comprehensive review of Hunt's life, including the police investigations that named him. Hunt, however, defended himself by claiming that his name had been unfairly associated with criminal activity since the late 1980s. He argued that the police had fabricated his reputation as a violent figure. Hunt also tried to play the victim card, claiming that the article shocked him and deeply affected him. He further testified that he'd been arrested 7 times in the 1980s, but had moved on from working in his brother's scrap business to running a lucrative land and property enterprise in London, reportedly earning at least £30,000 a week. In 2013, after losing the libel case against the Sunday Times, question arose about the origins of his extravagant lifestyle. His criminal activities were now public knowledge. The judge described Hunt as the head of an organised crime network involved in extreme violence and fraud, concluding that Hunt had used threats and intimidation to scare witnesses and evade prosecution. Despite his repeated insistence that he had done nothing wrong, Hunt did not appeal the verdict, a decision that ultimately backfired. His case became the first official ruling to document his criminal activities, even though it was a civil libel case rather than a criminal trial. The court heard evidence of numerous police investigations, surveillance operations, and task forces targeting Hunt. Agencies like the Serious Organised Crime Agency, SOCA, have monitored him extensively, yet he only had a single minor conviction on record. Hunt was well known in gangland circles as the Longfella and was implicated in violence, intimidation, money laundering, and profiting from prostitution. One investigative report even labelled him too big for the Metropolitan Police to tackle. While the judge ruled that the Sunday Times had not definitively proven Hunt's involvement in drug trafficking or contract killings, the ruling favoured journalist Michael Gillard. However, Gillard's victory came with personal costs. After the story broke, he could no longer move freely around London or attend public events. He even skipped the ceremony where he was named Journalist of the Year due to safety concerns. As for Hunt, the fallout from his courtroom defeat didn't end with public humiliation. In 2014, just months after the libel judgment, he made headlines again, this time for receiving a £1 million loan from David Sullivan, a millionaire businessman and co-owner of West Ham United FC. The loan, issued through Sullivan's finance firm GCN 102, was made 3 months after Hunt's criminal status became public. Hunt owed the Sunday Times £85,000 in legal costs at the time. Curiously, £55,000 was paid the day after the loan was granted, and the remaining £30,000 followed 10 days later. The loan was secured against several of Hunt's properties, including a golf club in Essex and a restaurant previously owned by actor Sean Connery and former West Ham captain Bobby Moore. David Hunt's access to financial resources seemed unaffected by his criminal reputation. While Barclays Bank called in a £4.2 million loan after learning of his libel case, Lloyds Bank, partly taxpayer-owned at the time, lent him up to £4 million, despite public records identifying him as the head of a crime syndicate. Hunt's audacity and influence extended beyond financial dealings. In a shocking twist, he allegedly contracted a hit on detectives investigating his case. When the detectives reported the threat, they faced suspicion and a 2-year investigation based on false evidence. In 2016, they sued the Metropolitan Police for obstruction. Operation Tiberius had already identified Hunt Syndicate as one of North East London's most violent criminal groups. The report concluded that Hunt and his associates maintained their invulnerability by corrupting police officers and intimidating witnesses into silence. Despite law enforcement's efforts, Hunt's influence, violence, and connections allowed his criminal enterprise to evade justice for years. David Hunt's criminal enterprise was responsible for a series of violent assaults on debtors and rivals, with narcotics importation and protection as its primary operations. However, Hunt's ability to operate freely for decades was largely due to corruption within the Metropolitan Police. The Met's anti-corruption team identified 4 detectives colluding with Hunt, leaking investigation details, tracking devices, and intelligence database information to the syndicate. Despite substantial evidence, Hunt consistently avoided convictions. More than 30 investigations into his criminal activities were reportedly derailed through police corruption or witness intimidation. Hunt managed to evade prosecution for 30 years, as victims frequently withdrew their complaints due to fear and intimidation. His only conviction came at age 26 for handling a weapon, resulting in a 9-month suspended sentence. An unusual incident in 2020 provided a rare glimpse into Hunt's private life. His son pinned a handwritten note on the village green, pleading with neighbours to stop shooting their pet racing pigeons. The letter's polite tone stood in stark contrast to the family's violent history. Hunt continues to live with his wife Tina and their adult children in a lavish mansion purchased in 1993. That was it for today's video. What are your thoughts on today's topic? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see our next videos.